Moshi Moshi.
Hello,
I'm Zeb Ramsbotham,
and I'm Annie Ramsbotham.
and we're the Rambling Ramsbothams.
Our journey might be rambling, but we hope this podcast isn't.
Today we have an extraterrestrial email
Yeah.
to start the podcast.
Yeah, we have a fun little note from a listener. You want to read it?
Yeah, so the message is, Greetings, Ramblers.
Greetings.
Given the news of the impending reveal of extraterrestrial life on Earth, I'm wondering if you all would stay in Japan during the potentially paradigm-shifting aftermath and chaos. Do you think that such a massive public reveal would change how we view each other as humans on Earth, and would your views of Japan change? Figured I'd throw some madness into your calm and collected podcast. I enjoy your product. Thanks, B. Sandman.
It's a pretty out there email from B. Sandman. Also, when he sent this, the first sentence is, like, there's so much conviction in that first sentence. I Googled, like, is there an impending alien, like, announcement? Like, am I missing something? Because the first, when
you're
he's
out of
like...
touch. You haven't been aware of the ongoing alien investigations.
He's like, given the news of the impending reveal, like...
So there was, like... I think I'm firmly in the category of, like, want to believe.
Well, yeah.
Like, I think...
Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah, I just think it's really neat. So I'm, like, always... And growing up, I was, like, really into UFO and, like, alien stories.
And
So I feel like
books.
I do kind of, like, stay somewhat in the loop of... I don't know, just, like... I like listening. So, yeah, there was, like, a big interview that some guy gave that he was some kind of governmental correspondence or governmental analyst that was helping
in America?
something, yeah.
The aliens are always in America, aren't they?
Well, he had something about how, like, there was a ship that was found in Italy, like, just before World War II, and, yeah, there's all this stuff that he talks about. So, yeah, what do you think?
Oh, well, I don't think I would leave Japan. I think the reason I would leave would be if there was something so intense and immediate that, like, I'm talking, like, we found intelligent life and it's gonna attack us. Like, there's gonna be some kind of intergalactic war and you're not gonna be able to leave the country.
Yeah, I guess, like, if you're thinking
yeah.
about the movie, like, Independence Day, if it was an Independence Day scenario where the aliens are coming down and they're, like, 100% going to blow the planet up.
Yeah, I would need to go back to my family. Or if there was, like, you need to leave the country now, or, like, we don't know when we're going to let airplanes take off again. You know, if there was some kind of now or never, yeah, I would probably go back to my family. But if they're just like, oh, we heard from an alien.
Or, I guess the question is, like, I'm wondering, like, the impending reveal of extraterrestrial life on Earth. So the implication is the aliens are here living amongst us on Earth. I don't think anything would change for me, to be honest.
Oh, I
do think so.
My
I'm actually
worldview would change. It would be pretty wild.
Yeah, my worldview would change. I think a lot of people's worldviews would be shattered. But so we kind of talked about this before the podcast this morning, before I was leaving for work. And I told Annie that I think Japan would be one of the perfect countries to be in if aliens were revealed.
Especially in, like, the paradigm-shifting aftermath and chaos that B. Sandman is describing.
Yeah, because I think that in general, Japanese people...
the least chaotic.
Yeah, they're so rigid with their structure and, like, governmental, like, laws and obeying stuff in general. So, like, of course, generalizing the Japanese populace. I don't think there would be a huge freak out in Japan.
Right.
I think Japanese people would definitely, like, embrace it. Where I think in the United States, I think the old proverbial poop would hit the fan. And I think people would be, like, looting and prepping and, like, hoarding. And I think people would be, like, getting into gunfights.
I was going to say, we have a lot of guns in America.
I think it would be chaos in America. Because I think, like, a certain faction of people would be like,
we're the preppers.
This is it. I hate aliens. Like, they're immediately pretty racist towards aliens. And they're like, I'm going to kill them. And I can't trust my neighbors anymore.
I just finished reading the book Three Body Problem, which is really popular right now because they're actually about to release a Netflix show.
They're about to release the paradigm-shifting news that they're extraterrestrials living among us.
Yeah, it's based on a true story. No, it's not, but it's about to be revealed. But, yeah, so when I saw that email, I was like, oh my gosh, worlds are colliding.
Yeah, so, I do think that my views of Japan probably wouldn't change. I think Japan is such a safe country, and I think Japanese people are pretty weird, and I think they would embrace some alien neighbors. In fact, honestly, Japanese people are probably the aliens.
Oh, wow.
We're probably the foreigners living amongst the aliens right now.
They already live with aliens and they're us.
Yeah. Yeah, Japanese people are already like, dang, yeah, we've already seen some real freaks over here. Like, what's someone from another galaxy? Like, this is cool.
Yeah, they gotta be less weird than you and me.
Yeah, and I think also just like in general, Japanese like all my students at the schools I teach at, they would be so down. They would just be like, yeah, this is just like an anime. Yeah. Like, I'm here for it. Like, bring them. Like,
I saw weirder stuff on my anime.
Yeah, like, I want to meet an alien chick. Like, let's,
No, but it is an interesting question because it did make me think about, like, what would be the reason, what would make me leave prematurely. I mean, I don't know how long we're going to be able to stay here in Japan, but just thinking about, like, what would make me, like, all right, I got to get...
rush home.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, maybe an impending alien...
Some kind of invasion, definitely.
Yeah, like an apocalypse. So, like, they're Independence Day. They're coming down and they're blowing everything up. They're not
would
happy.
Hope that, like, I hope we find aliens, but I also hope it's not, like, the Three-Body Problem or, like, Ender's Game or, like, all these recent sci-fi books I've been reading where it's then you have to wrestle with them being, like, they want to take over Earth kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, scary. So much wouldn't change in the process of, like, I don't know if I would really care. Like, I would care.
Yeah, if they didn't
care in the
come
way
into
that,
Earth.
Yeah, well, I would care they're already here in this hypothetical situation. You keep forgetting that.
Life on Earth. I guess I'm not reading it the same way you're reading it.
Extraterrestrial life on Earth. Like, the extraterrestrial life is already here.
Oh, I'm reading it as just, like, we found it. It's out there.
I'm imagining it's here right now amongst us.
What were you going to say?
I just don't think it would change much for me. Like, I mean, I think, statement. Obviously, I think it would be, like, really cool, and I'd, like, be, like, really fascinated and want to research it.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately, like, if they've already been here, and they're so much more advanced than us, like, what are we going to do, you know?
Well, I was researching aliens in Japan and all this, and there's a photo of an alien spaceship in Tateyama, which is
really close to us.
Yeah, it's one of the 3 holy mountains, so Fuji is one of them and Tateyama is another, and it's in Toyama Prefecture. And there's a very famous alpine route that you can drive where you might have seen pictures where the snow is piled up so high on the roads it's taller than the buses, but that's over there at that alpine route. But this picture has a mysterious flying object, and there's one camp of people that think it's just a butterfly, and
they're like, that's definitely a butterfly.
Another camp of people that are like, no, it's a spaceship, because they're saying that the butterfly wouldn't live that high of an altitude.
Yeah, so I think this is another reason that I feel like Japan would handle UFOs pretty well, because, like, in America, it's like a governmental conspiracy. Like, we don't trust the government. We need to get to the bottom of it. Like, they're here. We want their technology. And I feel like in Japan, they're just kind of like, yeah, you know?
Maybe.
They're just hanging out.
These are all generalizations, but...
Yeah. But there are some UFO museums in Japan, and there's actually one really close to us.
Yeah, in Hakui, on the Noto Peninsula, on kind of the base of the Noto Peninsula. Yeah, because there's apparently been a bunch of UFO sightings there.
Yeah, so we need to go there. And then there is an old... I've looked it up online. There's an old UFO story in Japan where apparently back in the day a boat was found. Like some vessel washed up on the coast of Japan.
So this is not exactly a UFO story, but there is a group of people that believe that in the Bible, Moses got on a spaceship and came to Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And then he lived the rest of his life here in Ishikawa.
Yeah, not far from us.
And then he died on Mount Hiratsu.
Yeah, he's buried over on the mountain not far from us. We've been to his gravesite before. So
you can go visit Moses' grave if that's what you believe that he got on a spaceship.
And he was definitely an alien.
Well, yeah, definitely the UFO Moses. I don't know about the one that they write about in the Bible.
I mean, the biblical Moses is also probably an alien.
Part in the sea and everything.
Yeah, he's a bit weird.
The way they write, yeah. But there's... based on the way you look at it, there's already a bunch of alien activity here in Japan.
Yeah.
So, I mean... Thanks for your question, B. Sandman. I also wonder if it felt a little... he's actually the first person who wrote in using our contact form on our website.
Yeah, the website.
Instead of directly emailing, which is great. Now we know it works. But yeah, it felt a little like this unknown email coming from some contact form, and it's like asking for a friend. Like, I'm definitely not an alien, but how would you feel if you met aliens?
Yeah, it's kind of like what were they, the minks or whatever, the weasels from that one episode. The weasels wrote that Wikipedia article.
Oh.
This email was definitely written by an extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
that was just
testing the waters.
Feeling it out. Like, is Japan pretty cool with aliens? Like, is that a good place for us to maybe integrate?
But yeah, thanks for your message, B. Sandman.
And this was 100% written by Will.
Wait, your cousin?
Mm-hmm.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really funny.
Yeah. I knew as soon as I read the email because...
Is that like a code name you guys have?
Yeah, so I actually didn't recognize the name until later.
I thought the name was weird, B. Sandman, but I just thought it was like, because they knew we were going to read it on...
No, just absolutely. Like Will and I have had this exact conversation before.
Oh, well, hi, Will, if you're listening.
Yeah, so as soon as I saw the email, I was like, yeah, that's Will.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, changing directions a little bit, but...
Well, so this is a thing definitely put on by the aliens.
What?
The festival. Oh,
yeah. So I was going to say that now we're well into summer and we're well into festival season. And so this past weekend, it's Monday right now, so 2 days ago was Noto Peninsula's biggest festival of possibly the year. But
yeah, I think so.
And it's called the Abare Matsuri, Noto Abare Matsuri. And you were telling me that Abare means rampage.
Yeah, so a lot of people...
And Matsuri means festival, by the way.
Yeah, people like generally call this the festival of like fire and violence.
Which
apparently
is such
Abare,
like scary. It doesn't sound like something fun you would go to, but
yeah,
it's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. So it's interesting because festivals, I guess, just throughout the summer, it's just a big time for festivals, which is really cool. But they kind of pop up all over the place. And for example, there's a place we want to go to over in Gifu called Gujo.
Mm-hmm.
And in August, they have a month-long festival where apparently every single day it's like they do stuff.
Like, do businesses, I mean, I'm sure they can't just close for the month, but do they have festivities after 5 o'clock?
It sounded like that they had like a few like really big days where everything was shut down, and then the other days are like just the party keeps going, but it's like after work. Like the Noto Peninsula is a little bit of the same in that there are 29 Kiriko festivals, and Abare is like the biggest one. So it's the first one. It's the one that kind of kicks off the Kiriko season.
And what's a Kiriko?
Yeah, so people don't like, I guess a lot of people frame it as it's just like Abare Matsuri, but there are like other festivals. So a Kiriko is a rectangular, kind of like if you picture like a neon sign, like a rectangular neon sign, but you stand it up on its end and then you like hold it up in the air. So it's kind of like a wooden frame with like the paper shoji stuff on it and then a lantern. So they're basically these like massive lanterns that you lug around.
Okay.
So that's a Kiriko. And at the Abare Matsuri, it's basically every single one of these is a parade that's involving the Kiriko and then also involving like usually a portable shrine.
Okay. So they're just like big parades at night with light up floats and shrine things.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so just Abare Matsuri is like known as kind of like the biggest one because it's the most exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like at the beginning of the parade, there will be a bunch of people with Kirikos, and then in the middle are the portable shrines, and then at the back of the parade there are like more Kirikos.
And so far it doesn't seem very like rampage or fire and flame.
No, it's just
but then they set everything on fire.
They set
right?
the portable shrines on fire. So basically they
intense.
like abuse the shrines. Apparently when they're carrying them throughout the town, they do stuff like they like throw them off bridges and they like throw them into rivers and they like kind of like beat up the shrines.
And is that not like disrespectful?
I guess not. I mean, I guess it depends on which Shinto god you're like, but it's kind of like an offering too, because essentially they on the parade, they get the shrines, the portable shrines to like a normal shrine.
Okay.
And then they kind of like demolish them, set them on fire, and then like beat them. So as you're like they're on fire, and as you're like smacking, it's like sending sparks out. So it makes this like really big, like cool display because they're like kind of sparks flying everywhere.
All the photos, there's like fire everywhere, flames.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like, because when I hear that, it sounds very like you're taking the shrines and you're burning them. But I wonder if it's kind of like, did you ever burn your Christmas tree after Christmas?
Yeah.
And so you're not really like, I don't know, it was a little ceremonial, a little bit, like sometimes the childhood church we went to, like our pastor loved this day, like so much that people were like, okay, like wow, he really loves like these bonfires in the churchyard. But it was a little like fun and cathartic to like light something on fire.
Well, especially a Christmas tree, because they like really,
yeah,
well, they've been dried out.
They go up in seconds, and then everybody just kind of like nervously laughs because it's so like fun to have this massive like.
Well, also just
fire.
bonfires, especially in the winter.
Yeah,
they're just fun.
So maybe it's kind of like that, where it's like, yeah, you're not really like burning the shrine out of like hate, but
well, yeah, it's not a hatred thing.
No,
it's like a celebration.
Yeah,
and they like the wording on the website is something about how like through the like rampage, it's how you. Like, I can't remember the exact wording, but something about kind of like becoming closer to like, you know, the Shinto like gods or something. But Abare Matsuri specifically is for the end of contagious diseases.
Oh, well, I wonder if that started because like, you know, you would burn. Like, if somebody had a really contagious disease a long time ago, you'd have to burn... No, you'd have to burn, like, all the things
You'd lock them away and then
no.
set the monastery on fire. Like,
didn't you hear about this? Like, you'd have to burn all the sheets and clothing?
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
definitely, like, during the plague, I think they were doing a lot of burning.
So maybe it came from that.
Maybe.
But, so we didn't go because it was maybe, like, an hour and a half or 2 hour drive, which isn't bad, but it doesn't start until 9
Yeah, it's
p.m.
a nighttime
and
festival.
It ends at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you have to drive back. So, yeah, maybe if we were young and fun, we could have gone and had a fun night out. So maybe we'll do that next year.
Well, I think I would plan in advance and I would try and book a hotel room.
Yeah.
And also it is kind of interesting because so there are 29 other Kiriko festivals. So we can still go see Kiriko, so like the big lanterns. We just can't see this kind of exact display. But a lot of Kiriko festivals have like fireworks and stuff.
I love fireworks.
Yeah, and so for example, we could go to Wajima and go to the Sosogi Grand Festival. And the pictures of that look really cool because the fireworks.
And Wajima is another place in the Noto Peninsula, but even farther. Like, it's almost at the tip.
And Wajima is really cool. It's really pretty up there. But they have a Kiriko festival where, again, you have the parade. They're portable shrines. And this one's actually really fun and, like, very nice. Because you carry around the shrine, and then the priest goes with the shrine. And they visit people in the community, and it says that have had an auspicious year. So, like, if you've built a new house, or, I don't know, maybe you've had, like, a kid, they'll visit you to, like, bless your, like, new thing.
It's very
and so
thoughtful.
The Shinto priest will come with the shrine. They'll bring the shrine to you, and they'll, like, bless your family. And then in return, you give the Shinto priest some, like, sake. And then you also provide, it says, cold drinks. Because the Kiriko, you have to carry it. And the shrine, you have to carry it.
That's very nice. It
yeah,
feels
so that
very
one's
small
like...
town that they would know you had something big going on.
Yeah, so that one's for the prosperity of the region, so Wajima. And then they also go around and, like, bless people. So that one sounds, like, very, like, fun.
Yeah.
Like, and very also, like, relaxed, calm. And apparently there are a bunch of, like, taiko drum displays, and then they have fireworks. But yeah, it's...
Yeah, Wajima itself is really known for those taiko drums.
Yeah, but a lot of these towns, they have, like, multiple. Like, I think Wajima has, like, 3 or 4 Kiriko, like, nights.
Oh.
So they do, like, the grand festival night, but I think they have, like, 3 others where they each might mean, like, something different. So yeah, maybe we can make it up there and see one. And if you don't, I think you can go to Wajima and there's a Kiriko museum.
Oh.
Where I think they have them set up. So you can go, like, look
like see the
at the
big
Kiriko.
lanterns.
Yeah.
Well, earlier this week, actually, on the 7th, there was a different festival, different holiday kind of thing. It was called Tanabata, which you may have heard of it before. I had to look it up, but it's based on a folktale. And so it's called the Star Festival, but it's basically to celebrate long-distance relationships. And the folktale is that there was a long time ago, a weaver princess and her father, like, betrothed her or, like, had her get married to this farmhand. But it was so successful, they loved each other so much that they actually stopped being good at their work. So they would, like, the farmhand neglected the fields and she stopped weaving. And it's a little sad because then her dad was like, okay, never mind, you can't see each other anymore.
It's one of those stories that, like, it tries to have, like, a happy like feel to it, but it's like, well, actually, why are we ignoring the fact that the dad was actually,
like, very controlling,
huge jerk, and, like, destroyed these two people's lives. But
so
anyway.
It's supposed to be good that he separated them, and they were so sad that he was like, okay, you can see each other once a year. And so they work really hard in anticipation of that one day, which is supposed to be like, yay, they have a good work ethic and they can see each other. But that's really
once
tragic.
A year.
So anyway, the July 7th, 7/7, is that day when those two, the princess and the farmhand, can see each other. And it also happens to be that day because the princess, or Hime, is represented by the star Altair, and the farmhand, Hikoboshi, is represented by the star Vega, and in real life, Altair and Vega are closest in the Milky Way on July 7th, and so it's supposed to be...
So you know what's tricky about this?
What? Is this, like, not true?
I don't know which one's true. So this happens a lot with, I think, like, Asian festivals and things. But because
like
they
a Roman calendar.
They used a lunar calendar, and there's a Roman calendar. So actually, some cities in Japan celebrate Tanabata on August 7th.
Oh.
Because it's 8/7. Because apparently, when they switched to the Roman calendar, it got offset by a month. And so apparently, traditionally, we can actually celebrate it twice if we wanted to.
Well, I guess depending on what day it falls on, the day of Tanabata is celebrating the time when those two stars are closest together. And so to celebrate, you're supposed to decorate sasa, or bamboo. Like, they kind of cut these bamboo fronds, like,
it's
big
tricky because someone was
things.
trying to tell us that sasa is not bamboo, but all the decorations we saw, it was bamboo.
Okay, well...
But remember, someone was like, well, it's sasa, it's not bamboo.
Maybe
and then
it's
we
not.
went and saw some decorations, and it's like, well,
bamboo. To our eyes, it looks like bamboo, but it might not be.
Yeah, maybe not.
You tie these you tie these paper strips to the bamboo, to the sasa, and you write your wish on those paper strips. And they're very colorful, and there's also streamers and sparkly things tied to them too. So it's very festive looking and pretty. And when the wind blows, all the little colorful streamers and paper strips flutter around.
Yeah.
And I guess your wish could be anything, but a lot of people have it be relationship based.
Yeah, I think it's like a romance.
Yeah, kind of a romantic long distance holiday. And some people also said that you burn the paper strips so that kind of the wind takes your wish up to the stars.
Yeah, you send your wish up there.
And we were talking to a girl she's actually in junior high school in our...
No, she's high school.
Okay, she's in high school in our Japanese class, and they did the writing on the paper strips, but then because they were in school, they didn't burn them. So I don't know how many people actually burn the wishes, but you can do that for Tanabata.
Yeah.
And also, Kanazawa doesn't have a Tanabata festival.
It's one of those things where it's not popular in every, like, region in Japan.
For example, Sendai has a really big one.
Yeah, theirs is really big, and then the other one was, like, in Kanagawa Prefecture, I think. They have a really big one in a city there. So honestly, it's kind of a bummer that Kanazawa didn't, like, do anything.
Yeah, Zeb was looking forward to the streamers because you said, like, a video game you had when you were growing up.
Yeah, I used to play Final Fantasy 11, and they would do, like, a summer festival sometimes in the game, and I think it was loosely based on Tanabata. So, like, the decorations you'd see in the video game looked like
similar to
Tanabata.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had never heard of it before, so we did a bunch of our Japanese class was kind of based on that, and the teacher was telling us the story, and yeah, it was kind of fun to learn about.
Yeah, and we got to find one little decoration at a department store.
Yeah, so I took a picture of Zeb next to it, so I'll probably put that on our Instagram.
And there were other people that were, like, there trying to take a picture too, and it was kind of like, well, this is, like, a little sad that.
Yeah, well, maybe it's because we recently had Kanazawa's big Hyakumongoku festival, so maybe there's only so much like budget and volunteer bandwidth to focus on one festival at a time.
You think that like someone somewhere would have picked it up?
Maybe.
And like had a little.
Or they're like, let's just go to Sendai.
Yeah. Apparently the one city was expecting like 1 million visitors.
Wow.
Just for Tanabata.
And I bet
big deal.
It hasn't happened in a while. So maybe it happened last year, but no, actually we're almost to a year of it being open, but this time last year Japan was still closed.
Yeah.
So yeah, this would be the first Tanabata to be open.
Incredible.
Lots of festivals. I don't know what our next like festival plan is. I guess
I don't think we really have one. I mean, we could go to Noto to try and see a Kiriko thing.
So it's not a festival, but barbecues are a very big thing in like summertime, and we do have a barbecue coming up next week that we'll talk about that's on a national holiday, so we get to party on a Monday. But on Sunday we got to have a barbecue with some neighbors.
Yeah, that's true.
And
forgot about that.
Yeah, and so that was really nice. It was actually the first time in a long time that we went to someone's home, which was kind of cozy. I don't know, it's because we don't have a lot of close friends here yet, and a lot of our other friends are also like recently moved or like moved within the last few years. We don't really have a lot of friends that have homes, like houses here, and I mean, we live in an apartment.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like college when you go over to like
it is like college.
An apartment.
Yeah, so we got to go to someone's home who's lived here for her whole life, and it just felt very like cozy and welcoming to be like coming into someone's like house entryway and sitting in someone's kitchen. And so it was one of the volunteers for our town's Japanese class, so a different one than we go to.
Yeah, it's like a local community organization, kind of like cultural exchange, and they put on a Japanese class. And
she hosted it just in her kitchen and backyard, which was really nice because there was probably like 30 people crammed into her house.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And they had a little grill outside that someone was he was grilling potatoes and all kinds of meat too.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Veggies, potatoes.
Pork, chicken, and beef, and then like onions, peppers. It smelled really good.
Yeah, and then because it's like a multicultural thing, people that were coming were like from like
everyone
Thailand
brought a dish.
And Vietnam and
so a Thai woman brought green curry. There was Korean like stir fry food that I'm not really sure the name, and there was also Vietnamese food that I don't remember the name, but one of them was a spring roll type food that they were cooking, and another was kind of, they were describing it as Vietnamese okonomiyaki, so it was kind of like an eggy thin crepe pancake that was stuffed with things. What was another thing? There was a guy from France. He lives here now, and he has a Japanese wife and a baby.
But it was just him and the baby showed up with casserole.
He and the baby they brought quiche.
Quiche, sorry.
Yeah, and the baby stole the show. Everyone, like, the world stopped when that baby walked in.
Yeah, it was kind of nice because then we were able to relax.
What do you mean? Zeb gets a little socially anxious.
Well, yeah, Zeb, but then all the eyes were on the baby.
Oh, thank goodness no one's looking at me anymore. Yeah. No, so that was fun. I don't remember what else. I brought banana bread, which isn't like American or anything. It's just something that
the other American brought a watermelon.
Yeah, watermelon really salad.
Nice. And I ate so much watermelon.
I did too. And he's from California, and so he had kind of like a Mexican-inspired watermelon because he brought
it's like tahini.
Yeah, tahini. The kind of salsa spice. It's got pepper and chili powder and salt and lime that you kind of shake onto watermelon or really anything, but also mint and lime on the watermelon, so it was a little more Mexican flavoring. What else? They were asking, is watermelon a barbecue food? And us Americans were like, yeah.
Or like also Japan's really into like regional stuff, so they were like, oh, do you eat watermelon in North Carolina?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, not usually with mint and lime and tahini.
I've definitely had
it with salt.
My watermelon in North Carolina. If
I'm thinking of like a local barbecue though, I would expect it to be whole watermelon sliced in triangles where you eat it off the rind. Yeah. So it was like elevated watermelon.
Wow. Yeah.
But that was really fun and nice.
Yeah. We recently were looking up an interesting topic because you were in a home improvement store.
Yeah.
And they were selling
Owls. Yeah.
Like OWLS, owls.
Yeah, like birds of prey. Like
in a home improvement craft store.
You would get arrested for. Yeah, I was just shocked. So first I was really thrilled because my friend had told me about this home improvement store that when I got there, it also had a craft store, like, in the same roof, and I was like, if I keep walking back, it's kind of like Lowe's in America where they have, like, a home garden area.
Yeah, it kind of sounded like, did you have Benjamin Franklin's?
I thought that was just like a paint store.
No, you're thinking of, what's the name of that paint store?
I don't know, I thought it was Ben Franklin's.
No, there was a Benjamin Franklin's, which was also like a craft store in America, so we had one in the town I grew up in. So sometimes we would go to the Benjamin Franklin, and it was close to the Food Lion. But they sold like birds and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, so we went into the Benjamin Franklin's, it was like mostly crafts, and then there would be like one corner that had like finches.
That's so
and so you
strange.
could buy birds.
Seems like completely different. Like, do you need some paintbrushes and paper and a bird?
Yeah.
Like, so the craft side was like a completely different part of the building. And then, so this was in like the lawn and garden section.
No, the owl in the lawn and garden section.
Not that it makes any more sense, but so at the end of this month, actually, I'll be selling some of my, well, hopefully people will buy it, but I'll have a little stand of, I do watercolor stuff and cards and things, and my friend helped me get a spot, but I needed a table and an umbrella because I'm too cheap to buy a tent. So I was like, well, how about I buy an umbrella? So I'm walking back to the lawn and garden, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have puppies back here. And, which I don't know why they have puppies, but they have this whole pet store section. So I'm looking at the puppies, and then I'm walking in the back, and they have small animals, and they've got hamsters, okay, ferrets, okay, chipmunks, like literal chipmunks. I took a picture of them, and they were in the tiny, tiny cage, and I felt really bad because one of them was just, like, running frantically, like, in circles around the cage. And then I saw owls, and, yeah, I was shocked. So, I don't know if they just think of them like we think of parrots, because they've been bred in captivity, so you can't release it now. But it was bright and loud in there.
What do you think they feed their owl?
Mice. I mean, you can buy mice for snakes, like pet snakes.
But you think a Japanese person would do that?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Well, what else are they going to feed it?
I don't know.
But
I mean, and this was strange to me because I knew that, like, so recently a lot of, like, animal cafes have kind of been getting cracked down on. Like, they've been trying to change some regulations.
Yeah.
So I knew that in some towns there were owl cafes.
I knew there were owl cafes, but I thought that they had to get a permit or that they were just kind of shady. I didn't know, like, I could buy an owl.
We could open an owl cafe.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah.
But owl fukuro is also good luck, the same kind of way that, like, the word for frog is also, it's also good luck, isn't it? Yeah. So they have all these nice things and mythology, they're important in mythology. So I don't know, I would have thought that they would be, like, revered or protected more, but maybe people just see them and they're like, oh, so cute, owl. But actually the other shocking thing was that owls were less expensive than the dogs and cats. I would think, like, yeah, you could have an owl for, like, $10,000, but it was less than a cat. And the cats and dogs were between 200,000 yen and 600,000 yen, which, if you drop 2 zeros, that's an easy way to convert to dollars, because I know a lot of our listeners are American.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, between, like, $2,000 and $6,000 for a cat or a dog. And I don't know if that's normal. I've never bought a dog or a cat that's, like, purebred, designer. But yeah, I was shocked.
Designer dog. Yeah, that's so much.
So then I got into a big rabbit hole on just pet stores and researching, like, what's the cost of having a pet in Japan, and is that normal? And yeah, that price is pretty normal for buying a puppy or a kitten, especially if you get, like, the papers that say what kind of breed they are, and if it's a certain age. Like, apparently the price drops significantly if it's not a puppy or a kitten, which is also sad.
I mean, I guess it's the same in America, though. Everyone wants, like, the baby animal.
But pet insurance is also very popular in Japan, and I don't know, growing up we always had a dog. We always got the dog from a shelter, so I don't know if that contributed to the fact that we never had pet insurance, but I don't remember pet insurance ever being a thing. But here,
I mean, I know, like, I've seen it advertised, in America, especially like when you go to the vet, sometimes you'll see it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I've never thought
Well,
I
I was
need
reading
that.
that vet visits here are very expensive, which is surprising because human doctors here comparatively are not very expensive
Mm.
compared to like in America you can get bankrupt on going to the hospital without insurance, and that it's much more affordable here for humans. So I don't know if it's different, but the pet insurance on average people will spend 300,000 yen a year for a dog and about half that on a cat. So yeah, thousands to buy the dog or cat, thousands a year to insure the dog or cat. And then the biggest expense according to this survey was food, which is actually a significant drop off. So about $500 a year for food, which that is not like anything.
Yeah, that's not
like
bad.
that would be the biggest expense. Would be like, oh, I'm gonna get a pet. Can I afford the food? So that's why I was surprised that insurance was thousands, and then the next biggest expense is hundreds. But yeah, I don't know. I just got really worried because we have two cats that are in America, and we've been looking at how to bring them over here, and it is a pretty long process. That hopefully we'll get to start in September when we go back to America, and I'm gonna take them to the vet and talk about, is it humane to put them on a plane for that long, and can we get all their food and medication over here? And
yeah,
it takes about 6 months to get all the vaccines and then get their boosters and then quarantine them in America. So that if you don't do that, you have to quarantine them in the airport, which is very stressful
and expensive, I think. But yeah.
So yeah. I don't know, if you're moving to Japan and thinking about, I just wouldn't buy an animal if you're moving to Japan. If you are moving and you want to bring an animal you already have, I guess like me, we should look into expenses of like food and insurance and vet stuff. But since we already have the animal and it's already like neutered, spayed, and up to date, like those biggest costs should be minimal. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just surprising. It puts it into perspective when I was talking to a coworker, and he had a pet cat, and then his cat unfortunately had died, and he was talking about how he wanted a cat, and he would talk about how when he walked around his neighborhood, he would look for stray cats.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why, because I wanted to ask him, like, well, why don't you go to a shelter?
Yeah.
And I didn't really think about it, but now knowing how expensive animals are.
Well, so that price is for, like, bred animals, like, where you choose what kind you want. They do have things, like, there's a company called Bark, which is, like, the equivalent of a 501c3 nonprofit here. They have several kinds like that, but Bark specifically, you pay, like, $200 and you'll get the pet, which is very little because it comes like neutered, spayed, and up to date, and that the cost of the vet visit for getting all of that would be twice that. However, in America, they'll just give you the animal because they have so many. Yeah. And they'll give it to you.
Yeah, often they just do like, please, like, come get it, and then they'll be like, great, do you want the whole family? Because they're like brothers and sisters too. Cats? There's like a whole litter of cat. You can just take them.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you do have to pay, but like sometimes they'll, be promotions and stuff.
It's a hard topic though, because Japan did, about 10 years ago, they did have a push to get everything under control with this kind of thing, and they had this whole campaign of a pet is for life, but then that kind of backfired in some ways. Specifically, elderly people would have a pet and they would get older and they would have to go to an elderly home that doesn't accept pets. There's actually a lot of apartments, a lot of rental places do not have pet-friendly policies. And so the people couldn't take their pet with them, but because of this Pet is for Life campaign, they couldn't give the pet back. And so there was a lot of issues where elderly people were having to let their pet just go on the street, or I guess ideally they would give it to a family member.
Street animal.
But in that case, it was backfiring. And there also are cases where I've heard it's very difficult to have a pet euthanized here. Like even if it has cancer, like terminal cancer, is not doing well. I've read things about it being very difficult because the vet is afraid of getting sued because of that Pet is for Life, like don't kill an animal for any reason policy.
Yeah, it's a little wild.
It's tricky.
Well, do you want to talk about a different financial topic?
Yeah.
Get off the topic
Yeah,
of
sorry,
pet finances.
we really lingered on the pets for a while.
So I thought this would be like an interesting talk, especially if you're interested in moving to Japan or you're interested in, like, you're coming over on the JET program and you're bringing a pet or you're not bringing a pet, but you're going to be living here.
Yeah, you want to know about money.
Yeah, kind of some general finances. So I didn't know this. I learned recently that every month the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare releases all these spreadsheets with all this information about employment in Japan. So on July 7th, just a few days ago, the statistics for May came out, so they're kind of like a month behind. But it's just really interesting because it tracks kind of just income and like how they're doing it. So I thought I would like read some of the numbers and then we can kind of compare it to the JET program, so we can talk about how your like pay compares to some of the national averages.
Yeah.
So for example, the average cash earnings, which they define cash earnings as it's pre-tax.
Okay.
So you haven't been taxed yet, across all tracked industries. And then they break it into two different categories, with 5 or more employees or the average for 30 or more employees. So the average for 5 or more employees was 283,000 yen, and that's with bonuses. So contractual, so your average contract is 270,000 yen. And then the average for 30 or more employees, so I guess getting to be a bigger company, is 325,000 yen. And then that's including bonuses. And without bonuses, just your standard contract pay is 308,000 yen.
And this is per month.
And this is per month. So that's what they made in the month of May. So as of May, those were the averages. And it's interesting to note like contractual and non-contractual because, for example, teachers in Japan get paid a bonus, but if you're an ALT, you're not eligible, so you will not be receiving that bonus.
But you also don't have to stay late.
You don't have to stay late, and you work less hours
So,
than your coworkers.
Probably worth it.
Yeah, I think so. Especially seeing like the averages with the bonus and without the bonus. I mean, I guess the bonus is like maybe about a month's pay.
I mean, that is nice.
So that is like really nice. But I mean, if you think about quality of life and
Yeah.
less hours worked.
There's so much more stress.
Yeah. And then they go on to mention this other funny number, which I couldn't find, but it says the average cash earnings for full-time work is 368,000 yen and 102,000 yen for part-time. But I didn't see that in the spreadsheet, so I don't know where that number came from. But this is all interesting to note because as a JET, for your first year, you'll be making 280,000 yen.
So like
per
almost 100,000 yen less than the full-time average.
Yeah, so if you think about the average for 30 or more employees, so a bigger company, most schools are going to be 30 or more employees, being 308,000. You're making 20,000 less than that. But then this other number that they have about the average cash earnings for a full-time work being 368,000, which I don't know if that includes bonuses or not. But yeah, so essentially it's kind of interesting to know, and for like some more context, if you're in a company with 5 or more employees in the education and learning support category, the average there was 301,000 with bonuses and 296,000 without bonuses.
So that's closer to what JET is.
Yeah. In a
And
smaller
also-
company, you would maybe make a little bit more off the JET program.
Yeah, but so also the JET program, it's the same price nationwide, right? Like a JET in
Yep.
Hokkaido is
So that's
getting
where it
paid
gets
the
tricky
same as Tokyo.
Because, a first-year JET in Tokyo is making the same amount as me.
Right, and that would be really hard.
I think so.
Because, apartment prices, food prices, everything.
So sometimes,
it's more expensive.
It just varies depending on region because, like, if you're in the super countryside, sometimes they'll provide housing for you because they'll be like, look, we own this apartment and you can just stay there. And so then you don't really pay much rent, or because you're in the super countryside, your rent is next to nothing anyway. So it varies, of course, across the country. So these wages go like different lengths in different parts of the country. But then I thought it was most interesting because if you're looking at like big companies with 30 or more employees which is maybe more comparable to the JET program and in a school. The closest category in pay is wholesale and retail, which was $292,000 with your bonuses, or $282,000 on your contract. So it's funny how you look at it, because depending on how you look at it, you're either making like really good money because you're like on average for some of these industries.
Well, and depending on where you get placed.
Yeah, and depending on where you get
placed. So a lot
placed.
of it's luck.
Or you're like really not doing so hot.
Right.
Like, because some of the industries and some of the categories were like, like 450,000 yen a month. But those were kind of like tech industry and stuff like that.
I don't know how they could do it differently. I mean, I guess there would be a lot of ways to do it differently, but I don't know of a comparable program like this in America that would pay you just a flat rate no matter where you got placed. Like, I just can't imagine, like, we have friends that live in California and their rent prices are insane compared to like rural North Carolina, but they're getting, their salary was so much higher, but it was going the same distance as ours was.
I guess the general idea is like you can do it. So you can live in Tokyo on this, but
yeah. It's
for
just not as
example,
comfortable.
your apartment is going to be potentially tiny,
right?
Or you're going to have roommates, or
I mean, if you're listening to this and you did get placed in Tokyo or Osaka or somewhere really big, I mean, there are a ton of huge perks to living there that are worth kind of not having as much spending money, because you're in this cool capital and you can walk out your front door and do all these things that a lot of people will have to pay.
Yeah, but also just knowing that there are people in Tokyo that are making less than you, and of course there are going to be people in Tokyo that are making way more than you.
Yeah.
But based on like the averages that the government reports, it's just really interesting, because I think a lot of people do kind of complain about the JET salary, which, I mean, maybe some of it's justified, and I think some of it's difficult because if you have student loans and stuff, then you're losing money to the exchange rate, and then you're losing money to transferring, and then you're paying for like US dollar stuff when you're living in Japan. It is hard in the big cities. Yeah, so I think there are a lot of things that kind of constrict your budget, but it was just really interesting because when I was first looking at these statistics and these numbers, I was like, dang, like making like so much less than the average. But then once I started looking at it more, I was like, well, actually, it's really not that bad. And one of the big benefits, which is really kind of appealing, is you continue to get raises from your first to your second year, and then your second to your third year, and they're really significant.
In the JET program?
Yeah, in the JET program. So as a second year JET, you're making $300,000 a month, and this is all before tax. And as a third year JET, you're making $325,000. So really that like boosts your income to being like very comparable to like the national average. So if you decide to stay on, like, you will get paid more, which is really nice. But yeah, just kind of looking at it and thinking about like the context of like Japanese national incomes. And this was all in an article that was talking about real wages, which are, it's an index that tracks pay versus inflation. And unfortunately, Japan, like much of the world, isn't doing super hot. And so we've had 14 consecutive months of decreases. So due to rising costs like inflation, our pay is not going as far.
But maybe we'll hit the bottom and go up.
Maybe. Or I'll just get that raise soon since I've re-signed my contract. But yeah, so it's just interesting to think about like when you're coming over, and just knowing that honestly the JET pay is like I feel like comparable.
Yeah, it's very doable. Because sometimes you do read a lot of, like, there are a bunch of Reddit groups for like current JETs and stuff, and sometimes they get a little negative and they're like, we're getting paid nothing, and like, it's so hard.
I mean,
and
it is that whole thing about
hard,
like,
but
if you're a JET in Tokyo and you have significant student loans that you're trying to pay back,
there are people that have it much harder.
Yeah. Like, that's going to be tough.
But yeah, if you're listening and you're like, no, I'm going to Tokyo, I mean, don't panic, because people can make it work. But yeah. I
mean, yeah, I think so. And so then that made me kind of curious about like, well, what about like the average household? Because then I was just thinking like, well, if Japanese people, like, this is how much they're making. I don't know, it just got me curious about like other monetary like indexes. And so there's actually this like cool website, and it's the Statistics Bureau of Japan, and they report household income also by monthly averages. And it's just interesting that like they report averages, like, so monthly food for a household of almost 3 people is like 86,000 a month. The craziest thing was their housing was 18,000 a month on housing.
Which that's
mind blowing.
So
I can't figure
low
it
as
out.
an average.
Yeah.
Maybe most people own their houses, and then it drops it really low because a lot of people are paying 0 a month, so it like cuts the average.
I don't know. But yeah, just something like interesting to think about. And we can post the links to these websites. So if you're curious, you can actually download all the spreadsheets from all the different months and kind of look at it more.
Yeah. This might have been a little too mundane for some people because, I don't know, sometimes my eyes glaze over when we talk about numbers, but it is interesting. And I'm glad that Zeb likes talking about numbers so that I
just think it's interesting.
to.
And this was like a one like key point I wanted to make is like, once you're living here, like we talk about it a lot on the podcast, like US dollar conversions. But I really think once you're living here, you should be thinking in yen because you're getting paid in yen and then you're paying for everything in yen.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's a really slippery slope to think like, oh, like this is so cheap because if I convert it to US dollars,
it's only a couple dollars.
Yeah, like I could definitely afford it. But then you start thinking about how it adds up in yen, and then you think like, oh, well, I only have yen to spend. And if I need to,
it is slippery because when we moved here, and even now, I will convert by like dropping the 2 zeros off a lot of things, which is probably the most helpful way to convert, because if I literally convert it to dollars, it's significantly less. But if I just drop the 2 zeros, it's more of a like comparison in my head to like, I know what $100 is like, but it's the conversion rate's not actually that equal.
Yeah.
So that helps, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, it's a bad habit.
Yeah, because then we're like, oh man, that's like cheap, and then it's like, well, we look in our bank account, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just yen.
That much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just interesting. So if you're coming over here, like, you can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a word of the week?
I do.
To wrap us up.
So I'll go first because mine's very tied into everything we just talked about.
Okay.
And it's okane.
Oh, money.
Which means money. So yen is the currency, which actually they mostly pronounce as in. So they drop the Y.
Not mostly, just always.
Yeah, always. So they actually don't say like, so we would say like go hyaku en, which is 500 yen. But in English, we throw the Y in there. But okane is like literally like just like money. So if you're just talking about like money in general, it's okane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different than cash though. Like genkin is.
Yeah, genkin
cash.
is cash.
Because
sometimes they'll be like, you need genkin because we don't take credit card or.
Yeah, credit card is easy because it's just credito card.
Yeah.
But yeah, first when we moved here, I thought that okane was cash and okane is just money. So I would say sometimes
like any currency, any means.
Sometimes I would say like, money. Oh, I'll pay with okane, and they would be like, okay, you'll pay.
Yeah, are you trying to pay with gold?
What I meant to do was to say that I would pay with genkin, but
yeah.
Cool.
Well.
Oh yeah, my word.
Yeah, what's your word? Did you forget it?
My word is not related to that, but my word is.
Your word costs more okane.
Yeah, sometimes. So my word is omori, which is large serving size. When you, like, so I know it only because we went to a ramen place the other day, and we had biked that day, and I was pretty hungry, and a lot of times you can order the ramen, you can order, like, how many noodles you want with ramen or soba or udon, or, you know, you can tell them you want a normal or more noodles.
Yeah, they'll usually have like a normal size and then you have the large size.
Yeah, and so I got omori noodles. Because at first I said literally like more noodles and she thought it was kind of funny. Like she knew what I meant, but I was like, that must not have been right. And so I looked it up.
Yeah, because I feel like that would mean you were asking for like an extra portion.
Well, you basically are. You're ordering the large size.
But I kind of would imagine like on the side, you know, like you want like more noodles.
There is a word for the large serving, and it's omori. And I was looking it up, and there's, I guess it's kind of like a comical thing, but they have even more. They have mega omori, and then they have baku omori, which is the bursting large serving, which is like, if you see pictures of like, you know, the kind of like the
like,
comically
yeah,
gross
like eating
food that's like
contest type thing.
spilling
Like,
off
you get
the
an
plate.
hour to finish this, and like it's
So you don't really need to know
yeah,
that.
it's
But
kind of gross.
if you want the jumbo size, it's the omori. And then if you are in a situation where you've eaten, maybe you got the normal size ramen and you ate all the noodles and you're still hungry and you have some broth left, you can actually order more noodles.
Yeah.
And it's a different word for that, for like additional noodles. Because you're not ordering the large serving, you're ordering like additional.
More noodles.
Yeah. I can't remember that one, but
probably what you told her the first time. More noodles, please. She's probably like, all right.
You don't even have your first
like,
yet.
Dang.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Omori.
Interesting.
Yeah, I hope today was interesting. So thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for checking us out, listening to aliens, money, pets, all
Noodles.
kinds of stuff. Tanabata, which is really aliens if you think about it. They're up in the stars. They're star people.
Getting a little out there now.
Star-crossed lovers in the sky. UFOs.
Wow.
You ever think about it?
No.
Okay.
Well, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave us a rating. Tell all your friends about us, even the extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
Send us an email. Maybe we'll read it next
email.
week. ramblingramsbothams@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.